You ever watch a tow truck slowly reverse toward a docked boat, while a screaming woman in pressed khakis insists she outranks the sheriff? Because I have. And let me tell you, it all started over the color red. Not noise, not zoning codes, not any legitimate complaint. Just red. Karen, a self-declared president of our little coastal HOA, thought my boat looked too official. She said it ruined her view. Said it looked like it belonged to Homeland Security, or worse, the Coast Guard. The irony? She was kinda right. What she didn't know was that boat did belong to a government agency. It was a fully certified search and rescue vessel assigned to the state governor's emergency response fleet, and I was its caretaker, quietly running coastal rescue operations out of my private dock, which I'd owned long before the HOA was even formed. I kept it clean. No sirens. No party lights. Just medical gear, sonar, satellite comms, and the scars of having saved over 30 lives in 5 years. That boat had more miles under crisis than most neighborhood SUVs had on the highway. But to Karen, it was an eyesore. I first met her a year ago, back when she rang my doorbell in a linen blazer and sunglasses that didn't quite fit her nose. She introduced herself with the kind of smile you give a parking attendant before disputing a fine. Claimed to be the new HOA president, self-elected, of course, and said she was excited to bring back visual harmony to the marina. Whatever that meant. When she asked why my boat had a red stripe, I told her plainly it was part of the state's search and rescue fleet. She blinked at me like I'd told her I was building a missile silo. That was our first and only conversation. Until the sticker. It showed up Monday morning, bright orange, crookedly slapped on the hull over my maintenance sheet. Unauthorized vessel. Tow scheduled in 48 hours. I laughed. Thought it was a prank. But when I called the number listed at the bottom, guess who picked up? No greeting. Just, I see you got our notice. I stayed calm. I told her the vessel was state property. Her response? We don't recognize outside agencies. Our rules apply to everyone. I should have stopped her. Should have clarified jurisdiction. But something in me wanted to see how far she'd go. Tuesday morning, I get a call from Lieutenant Sarmi, contact in the governor's coastal emergency program. He asks if everything's okay. I say yeah, more or less. He says someone from our HOA emailed the governor's office to report a military-style boat violating neighborhood code. I chuckled. He didn't. He just said, make sure the cameras are rolling. That night, someone tried to peek inside the cabin. Didn't realize the boat had pressure-sealed hatches and motion alarms. My phone buzzed. I walked onto the deck and shined my flashlight just in time to catch a lanky figure sprinting away. Not Karen, but someone who'd clearly been sent. Wednesday, a neighbor forwarded me the latest HOA newsletter. Title: Restoring the Marina's Charm. Karen had written it herself. Claimed she was taking the first step toward removing illegal marine equipment disguised as rescue vehicles. It was so dramatic it could have been a plotline on a bad Netflix series. She had no idea that the dock my boat sat on was part of a grandfathered easement, excluded from HOA jurisdiction entirely. I had the paperwork, the land, even the water rights. But I still didn't stop her. Because by now, it wasn't about the boat. It was about her need to dominate. Thursday morning arrived like the calm before a courtroom verdict. I was sitting with coffee on my dock by 9 a.m. Karen strutted down the pier in a cream-colored blouse and a laminated badge that bounced like a sheriff's star. Behind her, a grumpy tow truck operator who looked like he regretted taking the job. She pointed to the boat like it was a beached whale she'd finally conquered. What she didn't know was that my buddy Frank, a state logistics officer, was inside the boat, waiting. The moment the tow operator crouched to latch the hitch, the cabin door creaked open. Frank stepped out in a polo with the governor's seal on the chest and said, real calm, I'm gonna need you to back away from state property. Karen flinched like she'd seen a ghost. The tow guy froze. Asked if she had clearance. Karen waved him off, said it was just a resident's boat pretending to be official. That's when I walked over, coffee in hand, and asked her if she'd bothered calling the number inside the hatch. She said no, because the HOA overrides city ordinances. Not even close. Frank smiled, pulled out a laminated document, and explained that tampering with emergency equipment fell under Maritime Statute 88B. The tow guy took one look, muttered, I'm out, and walked back to his truck. Karen went crimson, eyes wide, voice trembling, but before she could spiral, Frank added, you might want to consult your legal team. She stormed off. I asked Frank, think she even has one? He laughed and said, If she does, they're about to quit. That night, a neighbor slipped a flyer into my mailbox. Karen had scheduled an emergency HOA meeting. Theme: maintaining order in the marina. No mention of me, of course, but every bullet point screamed my name. I showed up anyway. Sat in the back, ball cap low, notepad in hand. Karen stood in front of a projector screen showing zoomed-in photos of my boat from dramatic angles. Called it a security threat, an unauthorized military presence, and me favoritia covert operation hiding in plain sight. Halfway through her speech, I stood up. Didn't raise my voice. Just said, for anyone wondering, I brought legal documents from the governor's office. They're on the table by the door. That was it. She was speechless. A few people got up to grab copies. One neighbor even clapped. Rick Heck's Coast Guard stood up and said, I know that vessel. Served with its designer. Karen, if you think this boat doesn't belong here, you're the one who's out of place. The room shifted. Karen declared the meeting closed and stormed out. Friday came, and so did the fallout. A neighbor named Brent Quiet Guy, drone hobbyist, approached me and said, you know she put cameras on the flagpole, right? Pointed right at your dock. I didn't. He handed me a flash drive. Turns out, Karen had used HOA funds to install surveillance cameras without board approval. I sent the footage to Lieutenant Sawyer. He said, sit tight. That afternoon, a plainclothes officer showed up, took photos, asked questions, and left without a word. Karen must have spotted him because within an hour, the cameras were gone. I figured that would be the end. But no, Karen returned Saturday with a city inspector and a clipboard. Claimed my boat interfered with homeowner Wi-Fi. I handed him the cease and desist from the governor's office. He read the first page, handed it back, and said, this isn't our jurisdiction, then walked straight back to his car. Tuesday came the grand finale. Karen organized a community readiness demonstration, complete with safety vests, cones, and laminated badges. She wore a sash that said Commander. Her crew marched around like a boot camp drill gone wrong. When they reached my dock, she pulled out yellow tape and started cordoning off the area. That was it. Within minutes, a black SUV pulled into the marina. Out stepped the governor himself, jeans, aviators, and a gas station coffee in hand. He walked past Karen without a word, greeted me with a nod, and said, thanks for the heads up. Let's make this official. He held a press briefing, declared my dock a state auxiliary marine zone. The boat, now an official emergency training site. And the HOA? Warned to stay out of state business. Karen didn't say a word, just stood there, fists clenched, lips tight. She disappeared after that. Took a sabbatical. The board voted to replace her. Rick won in a landslide. Karen's portrait was taken down from the clubhouse. Her sash? Rumor has it, stuffed in a box labeled temporary nonsense. I still sit on my dock most mornings, coffee in hand. Frank stops by now and then for maintenance drills. The neighbors wave more. Kids ask about the boat. One even asked if we ever fought pirates. I told him, only the ones with clipboards and sashes. People like Karen, they don't quit. They implode. And when they do, they take their fake authority with them. She didn't just lose control. She lost the community. Because when you try to tow the one boat that might save your life in a storm, you're not just rangerie dangerous. So now I ask you, what would you have done? Should I have stopped her earlier? Should Karen face legal charges for tampering with emergency property? Or was public humiliation enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Because trust me, when the clipboard comes out, it's already too late.